The Army just came out with 3 new recruiting commercials, but they're still missing something. So I'm going to play all 3 of them here so we can walk through them. I'll tell you what I think they got right and what they need to improve upon in order to continue to draw the right people into our force. Now, full disclosure, I am still in the Army, be it Army Reserve, so, once a month, part-time soldier kind of thing. But overall, the Army and the military has been a very positive experience for me and my family, and it's hard to imagine my life at this point had I never made that decision to put on the uniform. Now, my general view when it comes to whether or not somebody should join the military is that it can be a great option for the right people, but it's not for everyone, not by a long shot. So let's go ahead and check out the first of the new Army commercials called First Arrival. I think the Army did a really good job tackling this the way they did, right? This is the kind of very beginning stage and probably something going through a lot of recruits' minds before they head out to basic training, but it's, the last night in their bed for who knows how long, saying goodbye to their families, leaving home for, maybe the first time ever, and then getting on a bus and meeting these random strangers they've never seen before who just in a matter of weeks or months will become their new brothers and sisters. Now, this is one of those areas where there can be so much anxiety, and I get it. It's this unknown. You're moving to a new place, and there's so many rumors about what it's going to be like and how bad it's going to be or how easy it's going to be. And there's so much unknown, but there doesn't have to be. And this is what I was saying earlier. There's really no excuse today in 2023 to not have answers to all of your questions when you're thinking about this. It's still going to be nerve-wracking. It's a new experience, and it's going to be hard, but there are so many resources, be them official ones through things like the Army, Navy, Air Force, all the official channels like that, but then just jump online, find people that are posting on Instagram in a uniform and ask them a question here or there. You'd be surprised how many people would be willing to answer those questions. And then, of course, maybe you've got family members that went through it recently or friends, somebody who graduated from your high school the year before that is just back from basic training. All of those people can answer these very detailed questions to explain exactly what that process is going to be like, from day 0 to day 1, all the way through basic and into AIT and beyond. I'm not saying that necessarily makes it any easier or more people are going to say yes versus no, but think about how different it is today versus like 20 years ago. 20 years ago when somebody decided to join, they were hearing about basic training from, maybe a family member who went through 5, 10, 20 years ago, maybe. And then more from their recruiter who, recruiters are great people, but you never know exactly what their experience was versus what yours is going to look like when you actually put on the uniform. But today, that's not the case. You can talk to people who graduated basic training 3 weeks ago and find out exactly what it was like and be, somewhat more prepared as to what you're getting into. All right, the second new Army commercial is called First Patch. And if I'm being honest, got a little bit choked up first time I saw it. So here it is.
Today, we recognize the soldiers before you for the successful completion of their basic training. This time, we would like the family members and loved ones to move forward and put on your soldiers' Army 1-Star badge.
Proud of you.
All right, so this one clearly shows a little bit more of the soldier going through basic training, which is important. Again, if we want people making informed decisions, and a part of that is understanding what basic training is going to be like. But a bigger part they hit on here was when that, looks like the father came up and said, "I'm proud of you." An article came out in the Wall Street Journal just a few months ago saying that veterans are discouraging their children from joining, which is a problem because another statistic cited in that article was that 80% of new Army recruits have a family member who has served in the military. So think about that. When you got somebody very close to you, a loved one, somebody you look up to as a mentor saying, don't do that. Don't make the same mistake I made. And, personal opinion here, but I don't know there's anything that the Army can do that can outweigh the opinion of somebody that's so influential or impactful in your life, right? There's not going to be a new Army commercial or a new bonus that comes out where somebody's going to say, yeah, my brother or father or mother who I've looked up to my whole life said, don't make the same mistake I made, but I don't know, that new commercial looks kind of cool. Maybe I'll give it a go. Now, of course, that Wall Street Journal article doesn't speak for everybody, and there are still plenty of veterans that are encouraging their children to join, or at least remaining indifferent and letting the kids make the decision for themselves. So from my perspective, the audience for this commercial isn't necessarily the recruit, 16, 17, 18-year-old high school student thinking about joining, but the parent, maybe even a veteran parent, looking and seeing this father, veteran, I'm going to assume, based off the hat he's wearing, being so proud that his son followed his footsteps, joined the Army, and has now completed basic training. So I think it is kind of a message to those who have worn the uniform in the past, just kind of a reminder. Putting on the uniform, going through basic training, serving the nation is something to be proud of. But, one commercial is not going to solve all the issues that they may have had during their experiences in the military that could be influencing whether or not they tell their children to join. And, for what it's worth, that's recognized. The Secretary of the Army recently said, quote, parents have concerns about, hey, if my kid joins the military, are they going to have good places to live? If my kid joins the military, are they going to be sexually harassed? Or are they going to be more prone to suicidal ideations, end quote. So it's all kind of interconnected, right? I mean, these videos are focused on new recruits, brand new people coming into the Army. But, the best advocates and the loudest critics are usually those that are either currently or have previously served in uniform. And, it's no secret that there's a lot of things we need to improve upon in the Army and the military as a whole to improve the experience of our service members. And once that's done, it'll probably help influence recruiting. More people are willing to exit the service and say, you know what? That was a good experience for me. You should give it a shot. The third new Army commercial is called First Target. Here it is.
Designate tank! Gun disable tank! Oh!
Tank identified! Range 1200!
Fire adjusted!
On the way!
Target cease fired! Hey! Nice shot. That's what I'm talking about.
All right, this is a direction I've been hoping that the Army would go for quite a while, and I think they're walking the line pretty well here. So over the last 20 years or so during the global war on terror, there has been so much of a focus on our special operations forces in the U.S. Army that primarily takes the form of Special Forces, Green Berets, and Army Rangers. And look, those folks are studs. They're all stars, right? They're running crazy number of missions throughout Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria during the peak of these wars, putting themselves in incredibly dangerous situations. It's so hard to work your way into any one of those organizations. And I understand. It's the sexy thing. It's the cool, special ops, running raids at night. I got it. It's books, movies, TV shows, all that stuff. But that makes up such a tiny, tiny fraction of the force. And, I think I've spoken to dozens of soldiers that came in wanting to do that as their career, right? They wanted to be in Ranger Regiment. They wanted to work their way into Delta. And it's not likely, to be blunt. Like there's so few people that actually make it into these organizations that when we advertise those, people join thinking that's what they're going to be able to do. And then they get into the force and they find out for any number of reasons that they're not able to do it. And then they're stuck in a job that they just, they checked a box because I don't have to worry about this. I'm going to be a Ranger. I'll whatever. I'll be a tanker. And then they get stuck in a job they don't actually want to do. And then they don't enjoy their time in the military and they hate it and they're resentful and they end up getting out. So I've kind of wanted for a while for the Army to kind of push some of these other MOSs or jobs within the Army. But it's a fine line to walk because, the majority of the U.S. Army are support roles. But it's hard to make a real hard-hitting 30-second commercial about maintenance and support in the U.S. Army. It's critical. We can't operate without it. It's just hard to really grab someone's attention talking about the Army without showing some sort of combat arm. So I don't know, maybe that's my bias coming through here, but that's why I think the tank option here actually works pretty well, right? It's, this is not a knock at tankers to suggest that being a tanker is easy, but there are a lot more slots available if you want to operate a tank than if you want to jump out of aircraft with a special forces group, right? It's not even close. So a lot more people could see this commercial, go down to the recruiter's office and say, I want to be the guy firing the sabot into the enemy tank. And, 9 times out of 10, there's probably going to be a slot available. But there's still something missing. And there's a video here that I hope the Army makes, and I hope it becomes a theme going forward in some of their content. We've got first arrival, first patch, first target. How about first job outside of the Army? I mean, look, the goal is not for everybody who joins the Army to stay in for 20 or 30 years. It's just not structured that way, right? There's, here come the pyramid jokes, but the Army is structured like a pyramid. There are fewer sergeants than there are privates. There are even fewer staff sergeants than sergeants, and so on and so on and so on. On the officer side, there's fewer majors than there are second lieutenants, fewer generals than there are lieutenant colonels. So the goal when somebody joins the Army is not for every single one of them to stay for 20 plus years. We know and expect and plan on them to kind of filter out over time. So let's say when a soldier joins, and I'm making up numbers here, but we know with a greater than 50% chance they're only going to serve one enlistment before exiting the Army. That means, after 3, 4, 5 years, they might have the military in their rearview mirror forever at the age of 22, 23, 24? Their whole life is ahead of them. So if we already know that most soldiers aren't going to make the Army a career, and when they do get out, they're going to have, another 40 plus years before they're even considering retirement, we need to consider when the soldier is thinking about joining, explaining to them the benefits that service will have as they exit the military. The leadership skills, discipline, responsibility, or even the hard skills that they can learn in the service that are directly transferable to a civilian career. This also isn't some hypothetical situation. It's what's happening right now and has been for a long time. All the time, soldiers come into the service, learn a skill or a trade, and they're able to leverage that into a new opportunity in the civilian sector when they leave the service. Right now, a lot of those examples and case studies are held until the very end of a soldier's contract when they go through some courses talking about what you might be able to expect on the outside world and how to apply for jobs and translate skills, things like that. Why not take those success stories and those examples and move them to the very front? Have those conversations with the candidates while they're still considering whether or not they would join the Army. So that's my sticking point here. I think we need one more commercial focused on exiting and life after the Army. There's countless examples of people that served 5-year contracts, got out and leveraged those skills into making a lot more money than they were in the Army. And look, that's good for the soldier. That's good for the Army. That's good for the nation as a whole. Let's talk about it. Let's promote that. But that's all I got for now. For those of you interested in national security subjects, check out the SITREP I put out on Substack. It's 6 to 9 articles summarized with links out to various sources as well as podcast recommendations once a week direct to your inbox. If interested, the link is in the description below. Thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time.